So what are the 5 stages of grief? Now, while everyone experiences grief differently, psychiatrist Elizabeth Kübler-Ross identified 5 stages that individuals commonly go through when grieving. These stages are commonly known as the Kübler-Ross model and include denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Let me say that again. Denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Those are the 5 stages of grief. Denial is the first stage. And the first stage of grief being denial, this is the stage when individuals may feel numb or disbelief regarding their situation. Denial is often the initial response to loss that we as individuals struggle to comprehend about a situation's reality. Something bad has happened. We don't want to acknowledge it. Like it's shocking in the moment, right? And sometimes even when we acknowledge it in the moment, later on we could get hit with denial. It's common for people to feel as though the situation isn't happening or that it's a mistake. And during this stage, individuals may also experience shock, confusion, and emotional numbness, right? This is the stage that when I was a paramedic and the couple of times where I had to tell people, I probably more than a couple times, a lot of times, I guess, looking back on it, that I had to tell someone that their family member died. I used to see this. You watch it happen. All you have to do is watch an episode of Law and Order or something, some cop show, and you can see the actors acting this out. Denial happens all the time. An example of denial in the context of grief is when a person receives news of the death of a loved one and refuses to accept it. They may deny the reality of the situation, believe that it is not happening, or that it is a mistake. They may cling to the hope that the news is incorrect and continue to wait for more evidence as evidence that what they're hearing is wrong. People in denial may also avoid talking about the situation or refuse to acknowledge their emotions, feeling emotionally numb or disconnected, right? The stage of grief can last for different periods of time. Some may move past it relatively quickly, while others may remain in denial for an extended period, which may inhibit their ability to process and heal from their loss. If we don't admit that something is a problem, that something bad happened, we can't move over. It's a connect the dots sort of thing, right? In order to accept it and move on, you first have to admit that it's happened. You first have to look at it and say, yes, this has happened. Now, does that always easy? No, it's not easy. Does that mean you're going to do it overnight or people around you are going to do it overnight? No. If you're going through this and you recognize that, hey, man, something bad really happened, I'm not really accepting it well, man. I'm in denial. That doesn't mean you have to accept it right then. But once you recognize that you're in denial or you recognize someone else is in denial, you know where they're at in the process, right? It doesn't mean go over to the person who's denying that their loved one just died or that they lost, they had a breakup of someone that they're really deeply in love with. Don't go over and say, hey, man, you're in denial. Suck it up. That's not the answer. This is just a gauge so we know what's going on. We know where we're at in the process. Again, this is a process. We all have to go through it. The second stage of the grieving process is anger. And once denial starts to fade, people may experience intense emotions and feel resentment towards the situation, towards what happened, or other people. Maybe the person that it happened to or the thing that happened to. This stage is known as anger, where individuals may lash out, blame others, or feel intense frustration. Anger can manifest itself in various forms such as irritability, hostility, or even physical aggression. And it's essential to note, right? It's essential to remember that anger is a natural and healthy emotion, but it's important to express it in a healthy way and not to direct it towards others. Don't go around busting your house up, right? Don't go around busting things up because you're not going to get it back. It's not making the situation better. You're allowed to be angry. And when I say don't go bust things up, at the same time, don't go verbally bust people up, right? When you're going through this process or somebody's going through the process, we know after going through this, after this podcast episode, that they're going to have times of anger. We know this is going to happen, right? That's part of it. It's just trying to minimize it. It's trying to not say, hey, you're not entitled to be angry. You are entitled. It's how we express it. An example of grief's anger stage can be seen in a person who has lost their job due to unforeseen circumstances, such as companies downsizing now, right? Layoffs happening, inflation, whatever the case may be. And they may feel resentment towards their employer, the colleagues, or the situations, and may lash out at them, blaming them for their current predicament, right? The person may become irritable, hostile, sometimes easily irritable and hostile, and even aggressive towards others. We've all seen this. We might have been this. And that can affect their personal and professional relationships. Think about this. You're in a mutual assistance group, right? When do you come together? Once a year, whatever you guys do, whatever you got going on, and you LARP and do all your stuff out in the woods and all that good stuff. Yeah. And then when do you come together? When something bad happens. Well, when something bad happens and that group of people come together, when you follow your plan and everybody arrives at your bug out location, I imagine because everybody's had to bug out, that means bad stuff's happening in society. And some people in that group are going to go through the grieving process. It's only natural. So that's why we should understand this, because what's happening when they're going through the grieving process? The society's melting down, right? And now you're all together, you're bugging out. It's terrible. You're pooping in buckets, whatever you got going. And then what's happening? People are getting angry because they're grieving, right? Maybe that's something when everybody gets together, say, hey, remember everybody, we're all emotional right now. We're going through an emotional process. Some more so than others. Some are grieving the loss of their home, maybe the loss of loved ones, the loss of the life they had, the promotion they were going for. So remember right now, many of us or all of you are likely to be a little jacked up, a little angry, a little touchy. And the people you're going to be angry with are the people that are here, are your mutual assistance groups, right? So, hey, everybody, remember, if people are being angry, cut them some slack. And if you're the one being angry, try to remember why you're being angry and to cut yourself some slack and remind yourself, take a breath, right? Because in this situation, anger is a natural, again, healthy emotion, but it's important to express it, again, in a healthy way. That does not cause harm to yourself, doesn't cause harm to others, doesn't cause harm to the group, doesn't make the situation from bad to worse. That's anger. So we have denial and anger. Next is bargaining. And the bargaining stage is where individuals may try to negotiate or make deals to void the situation's reality. Right? That's what a big part of mindset is, about what the reality of the situation. And we don't want to accept this. Reality is terrible sometimes. It's common for individuals to feel as though they could have done something differently or made a decision that could have prevented the situation. During this stage, individuals may feel guilt or regret and may bargain with their higher power or other individuals to try to change the situation's outcome, right? An example of bargaining may take the form of a person who has lost a loved one to cancer. During the bargaining stage, the individual may feel guilty about not doing enough to prevent their loved one's death, and they may think about what they could have done differently. For example, they may pray to God for their loved one's recovery, promising to be the best person that they've ever been. God, please help them. I'll do anything you want. I've been there. I bet a lot of you have been there too. Right? We'll do anything in exchange for our loved one's health, for something to be different than the outcome that we're seeing. People may also try to make deals with other people, such as promising to donate money to something. I'll set up a cancer wing in this hospital. Just save my loved one. Bargaining, right? The bargaining stage, again, just like denial, just like anger, the bargaining stage is a common response to grief and is an attempt to try to regain control of a difficult situation or to make sense of it. So when you're in it, when your mutual assistance groups gets together or your family has a problem, like a serious problem, and that people are grieving, keep an eye out when people are in the bargaining stage. Keep an eye out when you're in the bargaining stage. Heck, there's five stages. That means you're about halfway through it. Now, there's a point we're going to talk about a little bit, that when you're going through the grieving process, you can move in back and forth in these stages. It's not a fixed, you don't move from one to the other and then never slide back. Maybe you do, but that's not the way it works for everybody. The next grieving stage of grief, the next grieving stage is depression. And depression is the stage of grief where individuals may experience sadness, regret, and hopelessness. This stage can be the most challenging and prolonged stage of grief, as people struggle to come to terms with the situation's reality. Individuals may feel a range of emotions such as sadness, loneliness, apathy, and they may struggle with daily activities or experience physical symptoms. Again, tiredness, sleeplessness, loss of motivation, right? How many times in our lives, I know, in my experience, and all of you watching or listening, you know my background by now, I've been not able to sleep and so exhausted I wanted to sleep, all because I was depressed, right? Back when my PTSD was real bad. Talk about loss of motivation. I could hardly get a shower. A person in the depression stage may experience intense sadness, feelings of isolation and loneliness, and may struggle with simple tasks such as getting out of bed in the morning. That can be a really tough one. Just don't want to get out. It feels like you have a wet blanket, a blanket of cement. It feels like you have a weighted blanket of ugliness on you. You just don't want to get out, don't want to face the world. They may find it challenging to concentrate on daily activities. That's a big one. Lose interest in hobbies or socializing. I don't know. Lose interest in patrolling the perimeter of your bug out location, whatever you got going. And experience physical symptoms such as fatigue, insomnia, again, loss of appetite. They may feel as though they have lost their purpose in life and may struggle to find meaning in their day-to-day activities. This stage of grief can be challenging and prolonged, and individuals may need, if it's available, professional support. If you're in any of these stages and the world hasn't melted down, this is just part of life that you're dealing with, and it's not the cataclysm, it's not the apocalypse, it's not Teotihuacan, right? And you have the ability to get help, and this is what you're going through, or a loved one's going through it, get the help. You know, it's like driving your car. Mental health is like driving your car, a 6-cylinder on 4 cylinders. Right? Sputter and fart down the street, doesn't drive worth a hoot, and not going to get it fixed. There are people out there, and it doesn't mean every therapist is for you, but there are people out there who can help you get through this. Maybe even just one session, sitting down talking to somebody. Right? Gaining back on your mental feet. That's a big thing. So again, when we see people in this stage, after they've gone through a big event, after we've gone through a big event, we see people in the stage, or we catch ourselves in this stage. It's not saying when I've had days when my PTSD was really bad and I had days where it was really hard to get out of bed and I would force myself out of bed, getting out of bed might be the best I could go for the day. Like that might have been a Herculean effort, but I got out of bed, right? Maybe for you, it's doing the dishes. Maybe it's doing certain stuff around the house, whatever that may be. Maybe it's understanding when that person in your family is depressed because they just went through something, that's what they're doing and it's a natural part of it. And not to beat them up, because the last thing you want to do in that moment is saying, look, you're all depressed, man, just get out of bed. Yeah, there's something there to that at times, but do you want to make them feel worse about the situation too? Right? It's all work with them, talk with them, understand where they're at so you can see where they're going. Next, the 5th stage of the grieving process is acceptance. This is the final stage of grief where individuals come to terms with the situation's reality and find ways to move forward. As time passes and they process the emotions, they may come to the acceptance stage where they acknowledge the reality of their loss. This is what usually happens. We usually get there. Some people don't. Some people will never accept some things. Acceptance doesn't mean that they're happy or okay with the situation, though. It just means you acknowledge it like, yeah, that happened. And you come to terms with it. Again, you can get in the acceptance stage and backslide back into depression and go back in and out of it and down to anger and all that. But these are all phases that means you're still in the grieving process, right? Again, acceptance doesn't mean that you're happy or okay with it. It just means you've accepted it. And instead, what it means is in accepting it that you've come to terms with it and are ready to move forward. In this stage, the person may find ways to honor the memory of their loved one. Maybe you create some sort of memorial. Maybe it's photos, maybe it's a plaque. I don't know, whatever that thing is for you that gives you comfort. Right? And again, in a bad situation, that could be important. Right? In a world, this applies to everyday problems in life that we all face over time, all the way down to major disasters. Right? These are things we can do. So how do you memorialize somebody? Right? What do you do? And they may also mean finding meaning in the situation by, helping others who are going through a similar experience. Yeah, I get several calls a month from people that call me up. Most people I've never known. I know them now. Great people, man. Had probably, 2, 3, 4 calls a month. Asking about PTSD. Hey, what can I do to work on my PTSD? Right? Why do I do that? It helps give meaning to my stuff. I still work on my stuff. So it means that we go back and help. That's what acceptance gets us to that point. And by reaching acceptance, the person that gets there can begin to rebuild their life. You can begin to move forward in a healthy way. And acceptance is an important stage in the grieving process because it allows individuals to find closure and meaning in their loss and to ultimately heal and move past it. Right? And that's what we got to do. We need to work at moving on. We need to work at and moving on in a manner that is commensurate with and in alignment with how the grieving process actually works. Not trying to force. You're not going to force someone into a better mental position. Doesn't work. I'll tell you that, right? So I mentioned earlier that the stages of grief are fluid. We move forward and back. So it's important to remember that individuals may not go through the stages in a linear, predictable manner. And some stages may be revisited multiple times. The length of time it takes to go through the stages of grief can vary depending on the individual and the situation. It can take weeks, months, or even years to go through all the stages fully. The crucial point to understand, though, is that the grieving process is part of the human condition because we, you, me, everybody are human. It's impossible to avoid the grieving process. Moreover, because we are all unique humans, we're all unique individuals. That's a great thing about being a human. We're unique. We all must go through it, the grieving process. We all must go through it in our own way. That does not mean we should let grief dominate us more than is necessary. Again, it's normal. Therefore, if it's normal, it's acceptable, right? But that does not mean we should expect not to struggle with grief when we are confronted with a situation that our version of the uncontrollable human condition determines requires grieving, right? We shouldn't not expect to struggle from grief because we're going to struggle with it. That's just the way it goes.